The Galactic Concord had existed for 12,000 years. It was a peaceful alliance of species who had long ago forgotten what it meant to fear. They had built their civilization on cooperation and trade. They had eliminated violence from their societies. They had never needed armies because they had never faced true predators. When the human diplomatic vessel called Horizon's Edge appeared at the edge of Concord space, the council members felt only curiosity. Here was a new species from a distant arm of the galaxy. Here was a potential new trading partner. Here was another peaceful civilization ready to join the great family of stars. Ambassador Catherine Cole stood at the bridge of her ship and watched Station Koroth Prime grow larger in the view screen. She was a woman of 47 years with calm gray eyes and brown hair pulled back in a simple style. She had spent 20 years in the diplomatic corps. She had negotiated treaties on 3 continents. Back on Earth, she had ended 2 corporate wars without a single shot being fired. But this was different. This was first contact with alien life. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. She turned to her security chief. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Shaw was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that rarely showed emotion. He had served 15 years in the military before transferring to diplomatic protection. He had seen combat on 4 different worlds during the colonial disputes. He had killed men with his bare hands. But today he wore a simple gray uniform with no weapons visible. Today he was just another member of the diplomatic team. The station was enormous. It stretched across the void like a silver flower, with petals made of metal and glass. Thousands of ships moved around it like bees around a hive. The humans counted vessels from at least 30 different species. They saw insectoid craft with crystalline wings. They saw bulbous organic ships that seemed to breathe. They saw sleek silver needles and massive cargo haulers and tiny personal shuttles. Darting between the larger vessels, the docking process took 3 hours. The Concorde was thorough. They scanned the human ship from bow to stern. They analyzed the whole composition. They mapped the internal structure. They tested the atmosphere. They examined every piece of equipment the humans had brought with them. When they finished, they sent a message welcoming the delegation to Station Koroth Prime. High Chancellor Zithron waited in the greeting hall. He was Veluxi, an insectoid species that resembled giant praying mantises from Earth. He stood 8 feet tall on 4 segmented legs. His compound eyes could see in 12 directions at once. His mandibles clicked softly as he watched the airlock cycle open. The humans walked out slowly. There were 12 of them in total. They moved in a loose formation with Ambassador Cole at the center. They wore simple clothing in dark colors. They smiled constantly, showing their teeth in what the briefing document said was a gesture of friendship among their species. Zithron studied them carefully. They were small compared to most Concorde species. Their bodies looked soft and fragile. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom glands, no defensive spines. Their eyes faced forward, which was unusual. But the Concorde scientists had explained this was likely for depth perception in their tree-dwelling ancestors. Their teeth were small and blunt. Their hands had no weapons built into them. They seemed completely harmless. The welcome feast was held in the Grand Hall of Species. It was a vast chamber with a ceiling that displayed the stars outside. Tables had been arranged in a great circle with food from dozens of worlds. Representatives from 18 different species had come to meet the newcomers. Ambassador Cole moved through the crowd with practiced grace. She shook hands with the Flori delegates, being careful not to damage their delicate vine-like fingers. She bowed to the Kasari ambassador, matching the exact angle their protocol demanded. She exchanged breath with the Yenith, which was their form of greeting. She did everything perfectly. Daniel Shaw watched from the edge of the room. His team had spread out among the crowd, looking relaxed and friendly. They laughed at jokes they did not understand. They sampled alien foods with expressions of delight. They asked questions about art and music and philosophy, but Daniel noticed things. He noticed how every species in the room flinched when a human moved too quickly. He noticed how they clustered together when a human approached, forming protective groups without realizing they were doing it. He noticed how their eyes kept tracking back to the human delegation, watching, always watching. These were prey species. Every single one of them. Their ancestors had evolved running from predators. Their instincts still remembered that ancient fear, and something about the humans was triggering those instincts. Even though the aliens could not understand why, navigator specialist Emma Lynn appeared at his side. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. She had grown up on a space station and had spent her whole life reading body language across species barriers. She spoke quietly. "They are afraid of us." Daniel nodded. "They do not know why yet. They think we are harmless. Should we tell them?" "No. Ambassador Cole has her orders. We smile, we make friends. We show them we are peaceful." Emma watched a group of Veluxy delegates step back as Catherine approached them. Their compound eyes tracked her every movement. Their mandibles clicked in a pattern that Emma had learned meant nervousness. "They will figure it out eventually," she said. Daniel smiled, and in that smile was something ancient and patient. "Yes, but by then, they will know us. They will know we choose to be peaceful. That matters more than what we are." The feast continued for 6 hours. The humans ate sparingly from the selection of alien vegetables and fruits. When they asked permission to prepare their own food, the hosts agreed out of curiosity. They watched as the humans set up a small cooking station and applied fire to their ingredients. Fire. The Concord species avoided open flames. Fire was destruction. Fire was danger. Fire was something to flee from, not something to use. The humans stood around their cooking fire and talked casually while flesh sizzled on metal plates. They did not seem to notice the discomfort of their hosts. Or perhaps they noticed and simply did not react. When the evening ended, High Chancellor Zithron made a formal announcement. Humanity was officially welcomed into preliminary membership discussions with the Galactic Concord. There would be more meetings, more negotiations, more cultural exchanges. The process would take years. But the first step had been taken. The humans returned to their ship as the station lights dimmed for the night cycle. They walked in their same loose formation. They kept smiling until the airlock closed behind them. In the privacy of the ship, Ambassador Cole gathered her team. Her smile was gone now, replaced by the calm focus of a professional. "Assessments," she said. Daniel Shaw stepped forward. "We mapped the entire station. Every exit, every power junction, every security checkpoint. Response time for station security is approximately 4 minutes. Their weapons are designed for suppression, not killing. They have never fought a real enemy." Emma Lynn added her observations. "Their social structures are collective. They make decisions by consensus. In a crisis, they will hesitate while they debate. That hesitation could cost them everything." Catherine nodded slowly. She had seen the same things. She had watched ancient prey instincts flicker behind alien eyes. She had felt the subtle tension that filled every room she entered. Humanity had found the Galactic Concord, a vast civilization of peaceful species who had never known true predators. A garden of plenty, with no wolves to guard it, and now the wolves had arrived, wearing diplomatic smiles and speaking soft words. About peace and cooperation, Catherine Cole looked at her team and made a silent promise. Humanity would be better than its nature. Humanity would protect this garden, not devour it. They would be the guardians these gentle species needed, whether they knew it or not. But first, they had to earn their trust, and that would take time. The horizon's edge settled into its docking berth, and the humans began the long, patient work of becoming friends with species who could not yet understand what friendship with a predator truly meant. 3 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Concord as probationary members. In that time, small groups of humans had spread across Concord space. They opened trade missions. They established cultural exchanges. They learned alien languages and customs. They smiled and made friends wherever they went. Nexus Market was one of the largest trading stations in the Outer Territories. It floated in the void between 3 major shipping lanes like a jewel hanging in darkness. 6,000 beings lived and worked there. Merchants from 40 different species sold goods from across the galaxy. It was a place of wealth and commerce and endless activity. A small human trade delegation had arrived 2 weeks earlier. There were 8 of them, led by a merchant named Henry Park. They had come to establish trading relationships and study alien markets. They carried no weapons. They posed no threat to anyone. Then the Kreth came. No one in the Concord had ever heard of the Kreth before that day. They came from beyond the mapped territories, from the dark spaces between stars where no civilized species traveled. They were reptilian creatures standing 7 feet tall with scales like armor and claws that could tear through metal. Their eyes were yellow with slit pupils. Their mouths were filled with teeth designed for one purpose only. The Kreth were predators. True predators. The first the Concord had encountered in over 8,000 years. 50. Kreth warriors stormed Nexus Market in the early hours of the station morning. They killed the security forces in minutes. They sealed the docking bays. They gathered all 6,000 inhabitants in the central marketplace and announced their demands. They wanted ships. They wanted fuel. They wanted coordinates to wealthy Concord worlds. If they did not get what they wanted, they would start killing hostages. The Concord response was immediate and panicked. Emergency councils were called. Fleets were mobilized to evacuate surrounding systems. Diplomats argued about proper responses. Military advisors who had never seen real combat offered theories about negotiation strategies. No one knew what to do. The Concord had not fought a war in 8,000 years. They had no soldiers. They had no tactics. They had forgotten what it meant to face a creature that wanted to kill them. Ambassador Catherine Cole received word of the crisis aboard the Horizon's Edge. She read the reports carefully. She studied the images of the Kreth warriors. She looked at the hostage counts and the casualty lists and the terrified faces of the Concord. Leadership. Then she called Daniel Shaw to her office. "How many people do you need?" she asked. Daniel had already done the calculations. "Give me 12, and we will bring everyone home." Catherine nodded. She knew what she was authorizing. She knew what would happen when those 12 humans reached Nexus Market. But 6,000 innocent beings were trapped with monsters, and 8 of those beings were human. She contacted High Chancellor Zithrin and requested permission to send a small negotiation team. The Chancellor agreed immediately. He was desperate. Any help was welcome. The human shuttle departed within the hour. Daniel Shaw selected his team personally. He chose soldiers who had served with him before. He chose people who knew how to move in silence and strike without warning. He chose killers who could smile at a child one moment and break a neck the next. Grace Hawkins was the team medic. She was a small woman with gentle hands and eyes that had seen too much death. She could save a life or end one with equal skill. She packed her medical kit and her combat knife and boarded the shuttle without a word. The journey to Nexus Market took 6 hours. The team spent that time studying station schematics. They memorized every corridor, every junction, every maintenance tunnel, and ventilation shaft. They learned the station better than the people who had built it. A Biloxi liaison officer named Terex had been assigned to accompany them. He watched the humans prepare with growing unease. They did not sleep. They did not rest. They simply studied and planned and checked their equipment over and over again. "Do you not need to rest?" Terex asked Grace. "The crisis will not be resolved quickly. You should conserve your energy." Grace smiled at him. It was a kind smile, almost motherly. "Humans can function without sleep for several days when necessary. Our bodies produce chemicals that keep us alert and focused. It is how our ancestors survived." Terex did not understand. His species needed regular rest cycles. Without them, they became confused and slow. The idea of functioning for days without sleep seemed impossible. "How did your ancestors need such an ability?" he asked. Grace kept smiling, but something in her eyes changed. Something old and cold looked out at the alien for just a moment. "We were hunters," she said simply. "Sometimes the hunt lasted a long time." The shuttle docked at an auxiliary port on the far side of the station. The Kreth had not bothered to secure it. Why would they? No one was coming to challenge them. The Concorde had no warriors. 12 humans entered the station through a maintenance hatch. They moved in perfect silence. They did not speak. They communicated through hand signals and glances, language developed over millions of years of coordinated hunting. The station lights were dimmed to emergency levels. The Kreth had disabled main power to keep the hostages confused and frightened. They thought darkness would give them an advantage. They were wrong. Human eyes adjusted to the darkness within minutes. Human ears picked up sounds that other species would miss. Human noses caught the scent of reptilian bodies and tracked it through the corridors. The first Kreth guard died without making a sound. Daniel came up behind him like a shadow and applied pressure to specific points on his neck. The massive reptile collapsed in seconds. Daniel lowered the body gently to the floor and moved on. One by one, the Kreth guards disappeared. They were stationed throughout the station to watch for rescue attempts. They were confident and alert and armed with weapons that could cut through armor. None of that mattered. The humans moved through the station like ghosts. They used maintenance tunnels to bypass checkpoints. They crawled through ventilation shafts to reach isolated guards. They fashioned weapons from station materials, simple blades and clubs that made no noise and left no energy signatures. Terex followed at a distance. Watching through his compound eyes, he could barely track the humans in the darkness. They seemed to disappear and reappear at will. They moved with a coordination that seemed almost supernatural. He realized he was watching predators hunt. Real predators. The kind his ancestors had fled from millions of years ago. The kind that haunted the oldest genetic memories of every prey species in the galaxy. The assault on the main hostage area took 11 minutes. The humans cut the power to that section completely. In the absolute darkness, they struck. The Kreth were fast and strong and deadly, but they could not see. They could not coordinate. They could not understand what was happening. The humans could. When the lights came back on, 47 Kreth bodies lay scattered across the marketplace. The hostages were unharmed. The 8 human traders were already helping organize medical care for those who needed it. Daniel Shaw stood in the center of the carnage, breathing slowly. His hands were covered in blood that was not his own. His face showed no emotion at all. Grace Hawkins was treating a wound on another team member. A Kreth claw had caught him across the arm. She stitched the gash closed while humming a soft tune. The Concorde relief forces arrived 2 hours later. They found the station secured and the hostages safe. They found the human team already aboard their shuttle, requesting permission to return to their ship. High Chancellor Zithrin reviewed the security footage personally. He watched it 17 times. He watched humans move through darkness as if they could see perfectly. He watched them kill creatures twice their size with simple tools and bare hands. He watched them work together without speaking, anticipating each other's movements like parts of a single organism. He watched them smile afterward, the same smile they had worn at the welcome feast, and for the first time in his long life, High Chancellor Zithron felt the ancient terror that lived in the deepest parts of his genetic memory. The terror of being prey in a universe full of hunters. The humans had come to the Concorde wearing masks of peace and friendship. But beneath those masks was something else entirely. Something that had just saved 6,000 lives by killing 47. Enemies in 11 minutes of silent darkness. Zithron closed the footage and sat, alone in his office for a very long time, wondering what humanity truly was and what their arrival meant for the peaceful galaxy he had spent his life protecting. The summons arrived 3 days after the Nexus Market incident. The full council of the Galactic Concorde demanded answers. Every species wanted to know what had happened. Every species wanted to know what the humans really were. Ambassador Catherine Cole received the message without surprise. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared for it since the day humanity first made contact. The only question had been when. She dressed carefully that morning. She chose simple clothes in dark blue. She wore no jewelry and no symbols of rank. She wanted to look like what she was, an ordinary human being. Nothing special. Nothing threatening, nothing that would make them understand what they were truly looking at. The Grand Council Chamber was the largest enclosed space in Concord territory. It could hold 10,000 beings comfortably. Today it held representatives from all 18 member species, plus observers from a dozen candidate worlds. The curved walls rose up toward a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. The floor was arranged in concentric rings, the speaker's platform at the center. Catherine walked to that platform alone. Her footsteps echoed in the vast silence. Thousands of alien eyes watched her approach. She could feel their fear like heat from a fire. They had seen the footage from Nexus Market. They had watched her people kill. Now they wanted explanations. High Chancellor Zithrin spoke first. His voice was calm, but his mandibles clicked with barely hidden anxiety. Ambassador Cole, the Concord has welcomed humanity as friends. We have opened our worlds to your people. We have shared our knowledge and our resources. And now we discover that you have hidden your true nature from us. We demand to know what humans really are. Catherine looked up at the assembled delegates. She saw the Veluxi, with their compound eyes tracking her every breath. She saw the Fleuret delegates, plant-based beings whose vine-like bodies trembled slightly. She saw the Kasari, the Yeneth, the Merave, and a dozen other species she had come to know over the past months. All of them were afraid. All of them were waiting. She took a slow breath and began to speak. You want to know what humans are? I will tell you, but I must warn you that the truth is not pleasant. The truth is something your ancestors knew, but your civilizations have forgotten. The truth is the reason you feel fear when you look at us, even though you cannot explain why. She paused to let her words settle over the chamber. Humans are predators. We are apex predators. On our world, we rose to the top of the food chain not through strength or speed or natural weapons, but through something far more dangerous. We rose through endurance and intelligence and cooperation. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Catherine continued. Our ancestors hunted in a way that no other predator on our world could match. We did not chase our prey and catch it quickly. We followed it. For hours. For days. We walked after it while it ran. We tracked it while it hid. We waited while it rested, and then we followed again. Eventually, our prey would collapse from exhaustion, and then we would kill it. The Fleuret delegate, a being named Yenix, whose body was covered in delicate purple flowers, raised a trembling appendage. That seems inefficient. Why not simply catch the prey quickly? Catherine smiled, and in that smile was something very old. Because we could not catch it quickly. We were not the fastest creatures on our world. We were not the strongest. We had no claws, no fangs, no venom, no armor. We were soft and slow and weak compared to our prey, but we had one advantage that nothing else possessed. We could keep going when everything else had to stop. She began to walk slowly around the platform as she spoke. Human bodies can regulate temperature through sweating. We can shed heat while we move, while we run, while we hunt. Other creatures must stop and rest, or they will overheat and die. We do not. We can chase an animal across open ground under a burning sun, and when it falls from exhaustion, we will still be walking toward it. The chamber had gone completely silent now. Our eyes face forward because we are hunters. We need depth perception to track prey and judge distances for our weapons. Our teeth are designed for tearing flesh as well as grinding plants. Our hands evolved to grip tools, and those tools became weapons. She stopped walking and faced the council directly. We learned to work together. We developed language so we could coordinate our hunts across miles of terrain. We created signals and strategies and traps. A single human is not particularly dangerous, but humans do not hunt alone. We hunt in packs, and a pack of humans can bring down any creature on any world. Delegate Morin of the Kezari, a small furry being with large ears designed to hear approaching predators, spoke in a shaking voice. The footage from Nexus Market. Your people killed 47 Kreth in minutes. In darkness, without weapons. Catherine nodded. The darkness did not matter. Human eyes adapt to low light. Our other senses compensate. We can track prey by sound, by smell, by the vibrations they make when they move. And we did have weapons, Delegate. We made them from materials we found on the station. Humans have been making weapons for 3 million years. We can turn almost anything into a tool for killing. She'll let that truth hang in the air. Your security scans found nothing dangerous about us because you do not understand what makes a human dangerous. It is not our bodies. It is our minds. We think like predators. We plan like predators. Every human in your territory has looked at your stations and cities and seen defensive weaknesses. We cannot help it. It is how our brains work. We assess threats. We identify prey. We calculate how to kill. High Chancellor Zithran spoke again. His voice was quieter now, almost afraid. Then why have you not attacked us? If you are what you say, why come in peace? Catherine turned to face him directly. Her expression softened, and for a moment, she looked tired. Very tired. Because we have spent 10,000 years fighting what we are. We have built civilizations on top of our predator instincts. We have created laws and ethics and philosophies specifically to control our nature. We have fought wars against ourselves that killed millions of our own kind. We have seen what happens when humans give in to their instincts completely. She stepped closer to the Chancellor's platform. We're monsters, High Chancellor. Every human knows this in their heart. We carry the capacity for terrible violence in our blood and our bones. But we have chosen, generation after generation, to be more than monsters. We have chosen peace. We have chosen cooperation. We have chosen to use our predator gifts to protect rather than destroy. She turned to address the full council one last time. You look at our smiles and see friendship. You are not wrong. We do offer friendship. But a smile is also how humans show our teeth. It is a threat and a promise at the same time. We are showing you that we could bite, but we are choosing not to. She stood straight and spoke clearly. Humanity could have conquered the Concord. We saw your weakness from the first day. We knew you had no defenses against what we are. But we did not come here to conquer. We came here because we are tired of being alone. We came here because we want to be more than predators. We came here to find a family. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then High Chancellor Zithran rose from his seat. And if we reject you, if we tell you to leave and never return, Catherine met his compound eyes without flinching, then we will leave. We will not force ourselves upon you. But I ask you to consider something before you decide. The Kreths are still out there. They are predators too, but they have not chosen peace. They will come again. And when they do, would you rather face them alone, or would you rather have humans standing beside you? She turned and walked toward the exit without waiting for a response. Behind her, 18 species began to argue about what they had just learned. But in every heart, in every mind, the same thought echoed. The wolves had come offering friendship. And in a galaxy full of dangers, perhaps having wolves as friends was not the worst thing that could happen. The Kreth did not forgive. They did not forget. 6 months after the humiliation at Nexus Market, they returned with vengeance burning in their yellow eyes. 3,000 warships emerged from the darkness between stars. They came in waves, spreading across the outer territories like a plague of metal and fire. Colony worlds fell in ours. Trading stations were reduced to debris. Millions of Concord citizens fled toward the core systems, carrying nothing but terror and stories of reptilian monsters who killed without mercy. The Concord had not fought a war in 8,000 years. They had security vessels designed for police work. They had defensive platforms meant to discourage pirates. They had absolutely nothing that could stop an invasion fleet of 3,000 predator warships. Emergency councils were called. Fleets were gathered. Plans were made and discarded. The Concord leadership debated and argued and accomplished nothing. While their outer territories burned, humanity watched and waited for the call they knew would come. It came on the 17th day of the invasion. High Chancellor Zithran contacted Ambassador Catherine Cole with desperation in his voice. The Concord needed help. The Concord needed warriors. The Concord needed predators. Catherine had already prepared her response. Within 72 hours, The human government activated something called the Emergency Cooperation Protocol. It was a plan that had existed in secret files since before first contact. It was a plan for the day when humanity would need to show the galaxy what they truly were: mothballed. Warships were brought back online. These vessels had floated in storage fields around distant moons, waiting for a war that many hoped would never come. Now they hummed with power again. Their weapon systems came alive. Their engines burned hot, veterans reported for duty. Men and women who had served in humanity's last internal conflicts put on uniforms they thought they would never wear again. They were older now, slower perhaps, but they remembered how to fight. They remembered how to kill. Some of them had nightmares about what they had done in those old wars. Now they would add new nightmares to their collection. Weapons factories that had been converted to civilian. Production quietly converted back. Assembly lines that had made farming equipment began making missiles. Facilities that had produced medical supplies began producing armor. The transformation happened in days, not months. Humanity had never truly forgotten how to prepare for war. Admiral Patricia Dunn took command of the combined human fleet. She was 61 years old, with silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen 3 decades of military service. She had commanded ships in the colonial disputes. She had won battles that military academies still studied. She had also lost friends and subordinates in numbers she no longer allowed herself to count. Her fleet numbered 400 ships. The Kreth had 3,000. The Concord expected humanity to fall back and defend their own territory. They expected a defensive strategy, a slow retreat, a gradual consolidation of forces. That was how prey species thought. That was how species who had forgotten war behaved. Admiral Dunn ordered an immediate offensive. The human fleet jumped directly into Kreth-controlled space. They did not wait for the enemy to come to them. They went hunting. The Battle of Varath Minor became the most studied military engagement in galactic history. Scholars would analyze it for centuries. They would write books about it. They would teach it in academies across 1,000 worlds. The human fleet did not form defensive lines. They did not try to match the Kreth ship for ship. They fought like wolves hunting elk. They feinted and flanked. They isolated individual Kreth vessels and destroyed them before reinforcements could arrive. They appeared from unexpected angles and vanished before the enemy could respond. The Kreth had never faced an enemy like this. They were predators themselves, but they were ambush predators. They struck hard and fast and overwhelmed their prey with superior numbers. They did not know how to fight an enemy that refused to be prey. Commander Benjamin Cross led a squadron of 12 frigates directly into the center of the Kreth formation. Every tactical calculation said it was suicide. Every reasonable analysis said those ships would be destroyed in minutes. Benjamin was not interested in reasonable analysis. His squadron tore through the Kreth formation like a blade through flesh. They targeted command ships and communication relays. They created chaos and confusion in the enemy ranks. They drew fire away from the main human fleet, allowing Admiral Dunn to position her heavy cruisers for devastating strikes 8-7. Kreth vessels were destroyed by that single squadron before they were forced to withdraw. 9 of Benjamin's 12 ships survived. When asked later how he had known the attack would succeed, Benjamin gave a simple answer. They were scared. I could see it in how they moved, how they reacted. Scared prey runs in predictable patterns. Once I knew they were scared, I knew how they would run. The Kreth tried to regroup. They pulled their forces back to a defensive position around a gas giant called Varith Major. They outnumbered the humans 7-1. They had the advantage of position. They had time to prepare. Admiral Dunn did not give them time. The human fleet attacked at night. Not that night meant anything in space, but human brains still responded to the concept. The assault came during the Kreth rest cycle, when their crews were tired and their reactions were slow. The battle lasted 9 hours. When it ended, the Kreth had lost 600 ships. The humans had lost 43. The pattern repeated across the war zone. Wherever the Kreth gathered, humans appeared. Wherever the Kreth fled, humans followed. The reptilian predators who had terrorized the Concord found themselves being hunted by something worse than anything they had imagined. human ships did not stop. Human crews did not rest. They pursued the enemy across light years of space, never giving them time to recover, never allowing them to consolidate their forces. It was persistence hunting on a galactic scale. The Kreth began to break. Individual captains surrendered rather than face another human attack. Entire squadrons fled back toward their home territory. The great invasion force that had seemed unstoppable was crumbling from within. The war lasted 14 months. In that time, the Kreth lost 90% of their fleet. Their homeworlds were blockaded. Their supply lines were cut. Their military leadership was either dead or captured. They sued for unconditional surrender. Admiral Den accepted the surrender aboard her flagship. She stood before the Kreth High Commander, a massive reptile named Voreth, who had personally ordered the deaths of thousands of Concord citizens. He towered over her by 3 feet. His claws could have torn her apart in seconds. He knelt before her and offered his throat in the Kreth gesture of absolute submission. Patricia looked down at the creature who had caused so much death and suffering. She could have killed him. She had the right. She had the power. Every predator instinct in her blood screamed for vengeance. She reached down and touched his scaled head gently. The war is over. Now we heal. The galaxy watched as humanity accepted victory with grace. They watched as human medical ships arrived at Kreth worlds to provide aid to civilian populations. They watched as human engineers helped rebuild infrastructure that human weapons had destroyed. They watched as the terrible predators who had crushed the Kreth military turned their energy toward mercy and reconstruction. High Chancellor Zithrin received the news of the surrender in his office. He sat alone for a long time, thinking about what he had witnessed. The humans had shown the galaxy to faces. They had shown the face of the hunter, relentless and deadly and utterly without mercy. And they had shown the face of the protector, gentle and compassionate and quick to forgive. Both faces were real. Both faces were human, and the galaxy would never be the same again. 5 years passed after the Kreth War. In that time, the galaxy changed in ways no one could have predicted. Humanity had been offered leadership of the Concord. Every species had voted in favor. The predators who had saved them deserved to rule them. It seemed only natural. Humanity refused. Ambassador Catherine Cole, now elevated to Director of Human Galactic Relations, stood before the Council and declined the honor. She explained that humans did not want to rule. They wanted to belong. They wanted to be one member among many, equal partners in a shared civilization. The Concord did not understand at first. In their experience, the strongest always led. The most powerful always dominated. That was how nature worked. That was how survival worked. But humans were different. Humans had learned long ago that empires built on dominance eventually collapsed. They had learned that true strength came from cooperation, not control. They had built their own civilization on the idea that all humans were equal, regardless of their power. Now they wanted to extend that idea to the galaxy, so humanity took its place as one species among 18. They sent representatives to council meetings. They voted on trade agreements and territorial disputes. They argued and debated and compromised like everyone else. But things were different now. Everyone knew what the humans really were. Everyone knew what they could do if they chose. And that knowledge changed everything. Pirates who had plagued Concord shipping lanes for centuries suddenly disappeared. They did not want to risk encountering human patrol ships. Criminal organizations that had operated openly in the outer territories went underground. They feared human investigators who could track them across star systems without rest. When trouble arose, humans were there. Not to conquer, but to help. A plague struck the Flore homeworld in the 3rd year after the war. The disease spread through their root networks, killing millions before anyone understood what was happening. The Flore had no immune systems like other species. They had no experience fighting infections. Humans did. Medical teams from Earth arrived within weeks. They brought doctors who had spent their careers fighting diseases that would kill any other species in hours. They brought medicines developed over centuries of battling plagues and infections. They brought the knowledge of a species that had evolved surrounded by hostile, microscopic life. The Flore plague was contained in 4 months. The human medical teams stayed for 2 years to help rebuild the devastated population. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. When the Voloxi faced a food crisis caused by a failure in their agricultural systems, human specialists arrived to help. They taught farming techniques that humans had developed over 10,000 years of civilization. They introduced crop rotation and soil management and irrigation methods that the Voloxi had never considered. The harvest that year was the largest in Voloxi history. Everywhere the humans went, they brought solutions. They brought ideas. They brought the accumulated wisdom of a species that had survived ice ages and famines and wars and disasters that would have destroyed any other civilization. But they also brought something else. Something harder to define. They brought protection. Human warships patrolled the borders of Concord space. Human soldiers trained alongside Concord security forces. Human intelligence networks monitored threats from beyond the mapped territories. The galaxy that had once been defenseless now had guardians. The Kreth learned this lesson slowly. After their surrender, they had been allowed to rebuild under Concord supervision. Human advisors helped them transition from a warrior culture to something more peaceful. It was difficult work. The Kreth had been predators for millions of years. Changing their nature was not easy. But they changed. Slowly, generation by generation, they learned that there were other ways to live. They learned that strength could be used to build instead of destroy. They learned by watching the humans, by seeing how these strange soft creatures had tamed their own predator instincts. 50 years after first contact, a Kreth ambassador stood before the Galactic Council and formally requested membership in the Concord. The vote was unanimous. Even the species who had suffered most during the war voted yes. Humanity had not just defeated the Kreth, they had saved them. High Chancellor Zithran did not live to see that day. He passed away in the 10th year after first contact, old and tired, but at peace. Before he died, he asked to speak with Director Catherine Cole one last time. She came to his private chambers on Station Korath Prime. He was frail now, his compound eyes dim, his mandibles barely able to move. But his mind was still sharp. "I have a question," he said. "It has haunted me since the day you revealed what humans truly are." Catherine sat beside his bed. She was older too, her hair gray now, her face lined with years of service. But her eyes were still calm and steady. "Ask," she said. "You could have conquered us. When you first arrived, you must have seen how weak we were. You must have known that we could not stop you. Why did you not simply take what you wanted?" Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, ships moved through the void, carrying goods and passengers between worlds that had once been strangers to each other. "Because we have been conquerors before," she said finally. "We have been monsters. We have committed every terrible act that a species can commit. We have made war on ourselves and on our world and on everything we touched. And we learned, Chancellor, we learned that destruction is easy, but building is hard. We learned that being the strongest means nothing if you destroy everything worth protecting." She took his frail hand in hers. "We came to the stars, looking for something we could not find among ourselves. We came looking for family, for meaning, for a reason to be more than what our instincts told us to be." Zithran's compound eyes focused on her face. "And did you find it?" Catherine smiled. It was the same smile she had worn at the welcome feast all those years ago. But now, Zithran understood what that smile meant. It was not a threat. It was not a display of teeth. It was something far more precious. It was hope. "Yes," she said. "We found you. All of you. Prey species who had never known predators. Gentle civilizations who had forgotten how to fear. You showed us that the galaxy could be kind. You showed us that intelligence did not have to mean violence." She squeezed his hand gently. "We are still predators. We will always be predators. Our children will be born with hunter instincts and killer reflexes. But we have decided what we want to hunt. We hunt suffering. We hunt injustice. We hunt the threats that would harm those we love." She leaned closer.
Ow.
"You are no longer prey, Zithran. You have not been prey since the day we met. You are pack. You are family. And humans protect their family with everything they have. The old chancellor was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he did something no Veluxi had ever done before. He tried to smile. It was awkward. His mandibles were not designed for it. But Catherine understood what he meant. She understood that this ancient being, this leader, who had spent his life among prey species, had finally accepted what it meant to be loved by predators. He died 3 days later. Peaceful in his sleep, at his memorial service, representatives from every species in the Concord gathered to pay respects. Humans stood among them, no longer strangers, no longer feared. They were simply family now. Pack members mourning one of their own. Director Catherine Cole spoke at the ceremony. She talked about Zithran's wisdom and courage. She talked about his willingness to take a chance on humanity when others might have turned them away. She talked about the galaxy he had helped build and the peace he had helped maintain. And at the end, she made a promise. We will protect what you've built. We will guard your children and your grandchildren. We will stand between your people and the darkness for as long as humans exist. This is what predators do when they find a pack worth dying for. She looked out at the assembled species, at the vast diversity of life that had somehow become her responsibility. We are humanity. We are your wolves. And we are home. The galaxy had changed forever on the day the humans arrived. The prey species had gained protectors. The predators had found purpose. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other threats watched and calculated and decided that perhaps the Galactic Concord was best left alone. After all, it was guarded by humans, and humans were the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever known.